welcome to FunNGun. We got something I'm extremely excited to finally get my hands on. This is something I have wanted for many years now, and I did not realize you could just pick these up brand new still. This is an E&L Manufacturing American 180. This is a closed bolt semi-automatic, so it is YouTube compliant here. And we're going to go ahead and start off by showing you that this gun is unloaded from the bottom here. There is nothing in the chamber there. This is a bottom ejected gun. And as you've seen there in the intro, you could probably tell why based off where the magazine on this gun sits at. So that is showing you that the gun is clear. I'm going to go ahead and set the gun off to the side. We'll go ahead and go over what this gun comes with in the box, and then we'll get back to the gun and show you some of the accessories I've picked up from the gun. We'll go over how the gun is loaded and just a few cool things about this gun overall. So you do get this nice bag here that's set up to put some drums in it. You can actually break the gun down, put the barrel here, put the stock right here and the lower half right here, so you can put the entire gun in this little bag, and that is in its stock configuration. I do not believe it will fit in this bag exactly the way it is intended now that I have changed the hand guard. We'll get into that in a second. So something else you're going to get is this little tool to help you load it. We'll get into why I haven't actually used this yet also in a second to show you how it works. You're going to get this set of iron sights. The front side is polymer, and it just slipped over the front. There's a set screw that pins it on there. That is something else that I have replaced, as you've seen there with the compensator on there. We'll get more into that, like I said, here, I guess, in a second as well. And you do get an extremely nice rear metal sight. At least the top half is metal. You have adjustments for elevation right there, and it is wind adjustable as well. And it's just sitting on top of two riser plates here that slip over a Weaver dovetail to lock it onto the gun. So that is the factory iron sights. You also have a front swing swivel around the barrel when you pick this gun up. I went ahead and took it off. That's something I didn't intend to use, and I just like the way it looks without it. You're also going to get the winder here for the magazine, and I went ahead and had my buddy laser an arrow on there so I know which side, obviously, to wind, and it allows me to keep up with how many rotations I've put onto the magazine based off of where this is when I'm winding it. And I had to put fire here and safe right there, and that is a big deal based off the fact that this doesn't mean that the gun is safe not to fire. That means that if you take this magazine, the magazine off the gun with this in the safe position, it's not going to zip all your rounds onto the ground. So if it is in the fire position, it is ready to shoot the gun. If you pull the magazine off, all your rounds are going to end up on the ground, and I got to tell you, that's just a big hassle because you're going to end up with a lot of rounds on the ground depending on what capacity magazine you have in the particular gun. And that brings us to the magazine itself. Now, this is the 30 round YouTube compliant. It is internally blocked off to prevent you from putting any more rounds in it. So this is YouTube compliant. This is, like I said, 30 round magazine. It also comes with the upgraded metal base on the magazine that comes with the gun. Why that's important is something else we'll get to in a second. Only modification I did to this on all the magazines I have, I went ahead and painted these three little feet right here on the inside of the magazine orange, because you do have to find that position to start loading the magazine. That's something else I'll get to later in the video, but that just makes it easier to find that when you're looking at it. So let's go ahead and set a few things off the side here. We'll bring the gun back over here and we'll go over a few things I've changed on the gun. And before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and show you that you can just click this button right here and the stock comes off. And that allows me to get that out of the way, so that makes this a lot more wieldable, so I can show it to you on the table here. Another cool thing is you can actually just walk this nut right here out and lift up and pull the barrel out of this gun, so it is quick interchangeable on the barrel. And they do make a few different variations of the barrel. This is the one that comes with the gun. They do have a ribbed version that is threaded, and then they have a 9-inch version. If you want to SBR this, you can do that as well. And while we're at the front of the gun here, this is an accessory. This is actually the wood piece that it comes on, or comes with on the gun. It's just a standard handguard style here. And all the parts on this wood-wise looks like a Tommy gun in my opinion, but that's gonna give you a different look. And I wanted the pistol grip, so I went ahead and picked that up. It was like 60 bucks, and I definitely feel like it was worth it. Looks cool, gives you something to really hang on to there, and it keeps your hands away from the barrel once it gets hot, because if you have the right magazine in this gun, you're gonna get this gun pretty hot, even shooting a semi-automatic. And like I mentioned earlier, as you've seen there in the beginning, the front sight right here is slid off the gun, and I actually had my buddy over at Be Real Gun and Pawn make me a compensator here. Now this is just kind of the roughed in version. We're going to make a little bit different cuts on it on the second one, and then we're probably obviously going to end up Cerakoting it black, but I think the final one's going to end up being a 2-port, so it's a little bit shorter, because right now that is what I call the silver bullet comp. Did it need a comp? Absolutely not. but without this front sight on there, there's actually just like a little kind of a cylinder right there, and then there's a flange for that to back up against, so it fits flush, and it looked kind of goofy without it. So made something to put on there for the time being, and like I said, we're gonna work on that and get a little bit cleaner looking. Now, like I said, gun is unloaded. I showed you that earlier. And right here is going to be your charging handle. This is a reciprocating charging handle, so you got to make sure you don't have your hands anywhere near that while you are shooting the gun. And what's weird is how this actually works is you can see the bolt moving in and out right there from the top. And that is where the magazine itself right here is going to feed the rounds down into this. And you kind of got like a little ramp right there. It's going to put the rounds in. Now, I'm going to take this off camera for a second. I'm going to pop this apart real quick so I can show you what it looks like underneath there, because it is pretty simple. Okay. Or simple to take apart, that is. You got these two little paws right here, and what that's going to do is when the round is sitting above it right there, it's going to keep it from falling down into the chamber. When it is ready to chamber that round, the bolt's going to come up right here from the bottom, and you got this little skinny part right here that runs inside of that channel down the middle right there. And you also have a feed lip on the top of this, and it's going to ram the round into the chamber there. Now, initially I did have a few issues with this gun running. Some of them were based around that system right there. And I actually talked to Val, the guy that actually owns the company that manufactures these now, and he told me to go ahead and chamfer the top of the chamber a little bit more. So I went ahead and did that, and I went ahead and polished it a little bit to smooth it all out. So that helped on the feeding issue. And then we had one more issue with the gun having light primer strikes. And a lot of that was going to be due to this spring right here having a kink in it. It was actually worse than this. I went ahead and pulled it out a little bit to go ahead and get it to run a little bit when I first got it. But he ended up replacing this spring for me. And what that spring right there actually does is going to be hard to tell. But down in here, this is actually a striker fired gun. When it goes all the way to the rearward position right there, it's going to catch on a little stub that's on the frame itself. It's actually fixed in position. And the way the trigger actually pulls is there is a lever above the trigger right here. And on the top of the actual trigger, there's like a little flat spot. So that lever is going to come up and it's going to push on that lever. This is the flat part of the trigger. This is the lever. It's going to push. And then it's got that part where the sear is actually on the bottom of that striker and it's spring loaded. So when you pull the trigger, that lever goes up. It's going to push this lever up. And in return, let's say this is the striker, this is the lever. It's going to come up under it. And then right here is your sear. It's going to push the sear above the little ramp that's built into the frame right there. And that's going to, in return, drop the striker forward, hitting the firing pin right here, which is free floating in the gun, which you can't show that because when you cock it back, it puts tension on it. But that is what's going to actually fire this gun. And that spring actually runs down on the inside of this. This is actually a little cylinder right here. Has an opening inside of it for that to go into. And this is your recoil spring right here, as you can see when I pull that back. So not a super complicated design. Like I said, kind of hard to explain it on camera here, but actually, now that I think about it, give me just a second. I can show you that a lot better because something else that's pretty cool about this gun. Okay. Now that you can see this right here is the lever I was talking about. This is actually going to be what actually engages your sear in the top. And if you listen right here, that actually was me firing the gun. So this is the ramp. When you pull the trigger right there, it's going to push up on that. And this little part right here is the part I was telling you that is made into the frame. And the sear comes down and catches on that. So this pushes up on this, which in return drops your sear. So kind of complicated when you talk about it, but when you see it in person, it's not a huge thing to figure out here. It took me a little while just looking at it after I figured out how this part come out. This is actually pretty cool because this actually just slides in from the back right here. You press down on that and it's going to re-engage it and lock it in, so you can't take this out and clean it real easily. Using this little hole right here, you're just going to slip something in there, press down on that little thing, and you're going to be able to pull this part out. So it makes it really easy to maintenance. And while we're talking about this part of the gun, this is another part that I actually modified because right out of the box, this gun had over a 10-pound trigger, and I was originally told there's nothing you can do for this trigger, but hey, I wasn't going to take no for an answer because a 10-pound trigger with a decent capacity magazine is going to wear your finger. I will say that. With this 30-round capacity magazine here, it's not a big deal, but when you get some of the big boys, because they do make a, let's see, they make a 275, a 220, and 165 round drum. Now, like I said, you get into something like that, it's going to wear your finger out. This 30-round mag right here ain't too big of a deal. But so what I actually did on the inside of this, as you can see right there, there is a plunger in behind that. And that got me thinking, okay, so what gun has a plunger like that resets? It's also a 22, a Ruger 1022. So I went ahead and ordered a light spring, a light reset spring for a Ruger 1022 trigger. You take your grip right here, screw out, pull that off, and it's going to allow you to access that, or access the spring in the back right here. It comes out right about like that. You're going to pull out the factory spring, put that in there, put it all back together. And then what I also did was, I don't know if you can see that, there is a little red insert in there. That's just a piece of plastic wrapped in heat shrink. And that's just, the heat shrink just keeps it friction into place. And that's going to take a lot of your pre-travel out of the trigger while not actually engaging anything in the top of the gun. So you got a shorter trigger pull and a lighter trigger pull, and this now is about 5.5 pounds. I can't remember. I'll try to put a trigger pull weight picture off to the side right there so you know exactly what it's pulling at, but it is significantly better than it was from the factory. Now I will say it was extremely smooth, but a 10+ pound trigger wasn't cutting it for me, so I had to do something about that because that was taking a lot of the fun out of the gun. So I'm going to take this back off camera here, put this back together. So the pistol grip's back on there. And this little piece right here, how it goes back together, there's actually two little tabs right here that engage in the front of the lug right here. And that's something he said that he actually updated versus the full auto version of these guns. And that was because this plate would actually, when you're running it full auto, like I said, this is a semi-automatic version, but that plate would try to start rising up out of the way and creating an issue with feeding the gun. So that is something they went ahead and updated. So I'm going to go ahead and hold that off here, put that back in. And then another cool part is going to be your top cover here. And as you can see there, you got a little divot right there. And this part is spring loaded. That is your magazine catch. And that little divot right there, you have this little ball divot on the back side. You got these little squares right here. You got keys in the top of the slider or the frame right there. So that just clicks on and pulls back. So I'm going to do that off camera as well. And the gun's back together. Now, I will say that can be a bit of a pain in the butt because if you're just standing there on the range and you're not careful and you're messing with this, you can accidentally push that forward and drop the top off the gun. So you got to be careful with that. Charging handle, to take that out, you're going to take this screw out, pull it out, and there's actually a little nub that goes down into the frame right there and engages on your bolt. And I will say, well, yeah, you can see down in there, there is a lot of machined out spots in there to lighten this bolt up, and that's going to make it to where this also, it makes the bolt lighter, but on return, it gives a place for a lot of the trash to go when you're shooting this gun to keep it from jamming up as much, so that's pretty cool. So overall, internally, this is made very well. And then this part right here is an accessory that they do sell, and this is on top of, like I said, there is a standard weaver mount underneath that. This slips over, and there's two screws that clamp down onto it. And then I went ahead and bought a riser mount, and this is my Cyelee Bull Pro X. If that is something you're interested in, you're looking for a good red dot, you can go ahead and use my link in the description there. Go to CyeleeOptics.com and use code FunNGun at checkout to get 10% off everything on the website. So if you're looking for a good red dot, that is a good way to get you a good deal on one of them. And this is one I had extra because I had to take it off of my IDPA gun to make it IDPA legal. And let me go ahead and pop that off again, give you a look at that. That is a very large window dot. And yeah, it looks a little weird on this gun, but I actually like it quite a bit because of how big the window is. So that works out pretty good. And I guess I'll go ahead and off the camera here, take the barrel out to show you how that works as well, because that makes this gun extremely easy to clean here. Let's see here, let me get that out of there. So you can go ahead and just clean your chamber real well, clean your extractor channel, whatever you need to do right here, you're gonna be able to do it nice and easily because you can just pull the barrel straight out of the gun. That also makes it easier if you have less space to store the gun, gives you a lot easier way of doing that. So let me just screw this back together real quick off camera. Like I said, not trying to piss off YouTube here because I would prefer this video to be monetized if at all possible, but hey, if it's not, I guess it is what it is. I'm gonna be pissed if it's not, I guess, because I went ahead and bought the 30-round compliant magazine just for them. But you know, YouTube be dumb with their rules sometimes. So that's what I said, don't want to sit here and show me taking this thing apart on camera too much if I can help it. So let's go ahead and get it all back together. And we're gonna go ahead and bring in some more of the stuff here. We'll go ahead and move on to Well, I did mention earlier that I had some issues with this gun going off. I did also have some cycling issues. And before I move on to showing you how the magazines load, I'm going to talk about that real quick. And that is due to the fact that the 2 extra magazines I picked up for this gun on top of the 30-round magazine had these plastic bases on them, because you can get the, let me go ahead and set this off the side here. You can get the accessory mount, which come on the 30-round mag here, that is made out of metal and has these little wires right here to lock it on. The plastic variation has these 2 little plastic things. When I say lock it on, that is going to be your winder. We'll get more into that in a second. I didn't show you how that works, but that's going to allow that to lock on. And the issue I have with the plastic one is the gun wasn't cycling right. I was having primer strike issues because it wasn't letting the rounds feed properly. And like I said, that was somewhat due to this spring. But once I got the new spring, the gun still did not start running properly. So after talking to Val some more and doing some more testing, I went back and tried the magazine that had this metal drum, and it ran flawless. So I went ahead and took this base off, tried it on one of my other magazines that had the plastic one on there to confirm that was the issue. It ran flawless. So I went back to Val and picked up 2 more of these mag bases that are aluminum. Now all my mags work flawlessly. And basically from what I learned from him is some of the guns will run just fine with the plastic ones. Some of them will run with the metal ones. And then some of them will run with both. But every now and then he said you get guns that won't work with the plastic ones that will work with the metal ones, and vice versa. So I just happen to get one that likes the metal ones, which is fine. It just makes it a little harder in the loading process to keep up with it, to make sure you're not missing any rounds. So let's go ahead and show you how this this setup is loaded, because it is a bit of a pain in the butt unless you go ahead and do what I did, and that is make a custom speed loader, which I feel like is pretty cool. We'll get to that in a second and kind of go over that a little bit, how that is made. We're going to bring in another accessory that I bought here. This does not come with the gun. This was like, I think 30 bucks, and this is a weighted base with a rubber pad on the bottom of it, and it has these 2 little nubs. And I do recommend going ahead and picking this up, because you'll see why this makes this a lot easier in just a second. So you're going to go ahead and set your drum onto that, and it's going to click onto it. And what I like to do is you're going to go ahead, since like I said, you got to find these 2 little this little orange tabs, at least in my case, but you got to find the 3 little feet right here, and that's going to be your starting point. You're going to push that forward, at least the way I'm holding it right now. And I like to go ahead and start around right here. Get the first one in. Okay, now we're going to show you something that I haven't actually used, so I'm not going to tell you how smooth this is going to go. And the reason I hadn't used this is because, as you can see right here, it's supposed to lock on to the magazine itself with this little pin right here. And you can see all the scratch marks. That is because I have been sanding on this basically since I got it, trying to make it work. Let me grab something where I can get a better grip on this. We'll see if we can get it locked on here so I can show you how it's intended to work. Okay, got it locked on there. So dump a few rounds in this. The gun is no longer on the table, as you can obviously see here, so this is still safe. And you're going to go ahead and get some rounds lined up into this little tray right here. Okay. And as you can see here, this is already a tedious process, and that's why I chose to go ahead and make my own speed loader. Okay, once you get that done, you're just going to go ahead and roll the magazine in that direction. And as you can see there, them rounds are feeding into the magazine. And one thing I don't particularly like about this is because I'm rolling it away from myself, which I guess you could do it in a different manner. It's just the easiest way to feed these rounds. You can't tell if you miss a round in your rotation. Okay, so let's go ahead and keep doing that. And as you can see there, it's going to take a while. I'm not going to sit here and load this full magazine, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in the reverse here, completely unload it. And the last round I had to pull out from the bottom. Let's see if we can just come back off here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put that round back in. Then we're gonna bring in my speed loader, which has 29 rounds already loaded into it, because that is one right there. And what this started life as is a Tippmann Arms AR-22 speed loader. And I went ahead and chopped the bottom off. I'll go ahead and try to insert some pictures off to the side here so you can see what I'm going with here. I chopped the bottom off where you click the magazine in, then I went back and I cut the actual magazine button out of it and drilled a hole in the side of the body right here where that would stick down into it. Had to significantly modify this, put a stiffer spring underneath it, and that made a lever that would pop down in the bottom right here and prevent the rounds from falling out. Had them all ready to go there, but you can dump rounds into the little topper at the top right there just like you would before. and go ahead and shake them down to the bottom. That little lever is going to catch them. And then this was originally set up to work with the plastic bases, and that is why it is shaped the way it is, because that would actually just lock in and friction fit on the plastic bases without the need for these two little nubs right here. These two little nubs are going to engage into this hole and this hole right here. And let me go ahead, I prefer to load my magazines with this in the other direction. Let me go ahead and take a magazine and one round out of this so I don't accidentally overfill this. And I'll usually go ahead and get a magazine, or get one round sitting right there in the magazine, the other one already started. And then you're gonna put those two nubs in the hole right there. And it takes a second sometimes to get it lined up, but once you get it lined up, you're just gonna go ahead and rotate it. And as you can see there, those rounds are feeding down into the magazine. And right there is 30 rounds, so your magazine is now full. If you have one of the other magazines, you're just gonna keep on going there. So this makes it significantly easier and quicker to load this magazine. And what I did here was just took a piece of plastic, cut the hole out in the shape of the bottom right there, lined it up with this right here using these two screws. And that's just all sandwiched together with some double tied tape. And as you can see there off to the side, it is showing me making all these parts one at a time here. I actually used a piece of tape to actually get a stencil of the bottom of the plastic mag. So that's what lined all these holes up. And then what I did to make it work with this mag on the plastic magazine, I went ahead and forced it down into it and took a marker and dotted the two holes there. And these are just two little short screws right there. I believe they're 3mm diameter. And that just allows you to lock that in there, and you can just pivot it back and forth. When you press that lever, it's gonna start feeding the rounds. When you let off that, you can shake it some more, get some rounds down in there, and start feeding the rounds again. Now, I will say, if you run out of rounds, I like to back it up to about right there when I go to start it, that way that it's got the next round sitting on top of that one already, so you're not gonna lose the tension on it. And what I was telling you earlier, the reason I like to feed this way when I'm using that is because you can watch the side right here to make sure you don't miss one of the rounds, because if you miss one and it skips over, it's not going to feed properly, and then you get to the end, you're going to have an extra round in your little tube there, because 30 round magazine sucks. But hey, for YouTube purposes, it does the job. And that's actually how this gun's going to feed though. It's going to just do that right there, and it's going to unwind itself, and as you can see, the rounds are coming out right there. And let me go ahead and bring this in right here. Go ahead and zip those rounds back out of the magazine. And we'll get into how the winder actually works with this magazine. So now that the magazine is fully empty there, we'll bring the winder in right here. And you can't see it because it is clear or smoked black, but there is little teeth on the inside. It's kind of like some cogs here. And these little parts right here are spring loaded, and they have a little foot. And then you got these two little nubs, and you're going to go ahead and engage this end of the magazine. You want to make sure it fully engages on the bottom, and then you have to have it on the gun to actually do this. And see, right now it is in the fire position. If you have it in the safe position, like I mentioned earlier, as you can see there, I can't actually wind it, so that way if you pick it up right now off of the firearm, it's not going to dump all the rounds on the ground. So you go ahead and put it in that position right there, and then depending on how many rounds you have in the actual magazine right here, or how many layers, say if this was one of the standard capacity magazines, this would be a 3-layer magazine, and then the bigger ones are like a 4 or 5 layer magazine. So this being a 30 round magazine, you're only going to wind it a turn and a half to make this work. Yep, that's what we're going to go with. But if you have a, let's say one of the higher capacity, like a 160 or a 220 or a 275, we're just going to go off the 220. So the way that we're, or the 165, I mean, for that magazine, you're going to wind it 2.5 turns. That's the starting point. And then on top of that, you're going to wind it 1 full revolution per layer. So that would be 3 layers. So this is going to be 5.5 turns to make that one work. Or for the 275, you would go 7.5 turns. So bit of a process. If you have one of the larger magazines, this being as low as it is, you just barely have to turn it to make this gun run. You know, is what it is. And then when you're done with it, you're done shooting the gun. As you can see there in the intro, when it runs out of rounds, that 2.5 turns or however much extra energy it has, it just zips it on off, and then you go and take the magazine off, and you're going to sit on something hard and pop it back off the winder right there. And that means you are going to be good to go ahead and swap to another magazine or reload this one or whatever you want to do. And the cool thing is you only really need one of these to run the entire gun. And like I said, I went ahead and had it lasered, had the little arrow put on there, the fire and the safe, and that just kind of idiot proofs it a little bit, because like Val will tell you when you pick one of these up is you're going to do it at least once, if not a few times. I did it twice, and then you zip all of your rounds onto the ground, and it is a big pain to pick up all those rounds, even if it's 30 rounds. But when you have a fire position, that means it's ready to go, and you have a safe position, it just makes it a lot easier to remember. Yeah, there is a little F right there that I did highlight, but to me, it's easier to see it because either way, it's kind of confusing, because this is the fire position, or this is the fire position, and this is where the little metal or the little F's at. So kind of got confused there a few times. That's why I went ahead and modified it. So let's bring the gun back up here, talk about it a little bit more, and close this video out because it's getting pretty long. But this gun's got so much cool stuff going on here and so much stuff to show you here and talk about. It goes for a long video, but now that I actually have this gun figured out with the right mag base, the correct spring in it, the right ammo, bang, I've been running this gun on nothing but pretty much 24 grain Blazer standard velocity, and this gun has been running very well with that particular ammo, as you can see there in the intro, and as you will see coming up when I run this particular gun in an RFS competition. That's going to be really cool. Looking forward to that quite a bit. So overall, really cool gun. Like I said, it is bottom eject, so makes it ambidextrous for whoever's shooting it, basically, other than the safety, I guess, because your safety is this little switch right here, which is pretty nifty. It's actually kind of odd, though, because this is safe, and then you go all the way over the top, and that is fire. So kind of a weird situation there. How the safety works, you know, you'd expect it to go down and over, but it's actually pretty easy to get to once you get the hang of it. You can just bam, bam, back and forth, ready to go. So overall, cool gun. You do have the rear stud right here if you want to go ahead and put the front stud back on here and have a sling on this particular gun. If you're looking to, I guess, sling this thing carried around the woods, this would be the ultimate squirrel slayer, I guess, in that matter, because, well, with the right magazine, you're going to be able to go out there and hunt for a very long time. But, you know, that 30-round YouTube magazine ain't going to get you much more than a standard gun. But overall, definitely a cool gun. Been having a lot of fun with it now that I've got it running, especially after I figured out the trigger trick.
Okay, if you made it this far, I just want to say thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. If you're looking for more Fun and Gun right now, you can click one of the 2 recommended videos there. If you're looking for more Fun and Gun later, you can go ahead and click that there subscribe button. I sure would appreciate it. And if you're finding me from Facebook, go ahead and click that open app button at the top to make all that a lot easier, and I'll see you next time.